Welcome to The Married Therapist,
a relationship podcast
hosted by us, Luis and Amber Simide.
This podcast is all about love, conflict, and the gray areas.
If you like what you hear, be sure to like and subscribe wherever you're listening. Now let's get to the show. Welcome back to The Married Therapist. So the other day, we were talking about what happens whenever someone who's in a relationship gets a disability because of either like an accident, like a car accident or something like that, or because of some type of disease where they start to have some physical ramifications of it. Thinking like ALS, or if you get cancer, right? There's a lot of physical things that come with that. And what people do in those situations, right? And what our thoughts are on what we should do in those situations. So we're going to talk about it and share our thoughts. So for you, if someone's in a couple and their partner gets into like a car accident where all of a sudden they are quadriplegic, do you think it's appropriate, or do you think it's okay for the other partner to leave that partner because of that? Or do you think that would be kind of a dick move and they should stay there?
Well, as always, I'll say it depends.
Yeah.
There's a lot of factors that should be considered. What is that person's quality of life looking like?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say this couple used to always go hiking. They were very active and they did CrossFit and things like that. All of a sudden, from one day to the next, they're not doing any of that. I could see that would be really difficult for the other person to deal with, because your entire lifestyle shifts. And yeah, you could still maybe do some things, but maybe it's chair yoga, maybe it's board games and things like that. So no one can say like you have to stay. No one could say if you leave, you're a bad person, because that person is not in the marriage. So I would say it's about capacity. Like, do you think you have the capacity mentally and emotionally to deal with it? Would I recommend, if this person were my client, would I recommend leaving immediately? No, because you don't even know what's going on.
Yeah.
But once they get out of rehab or get home and you start to live your life and figure things out, maybe, just maybe, the person can handle it. Maybe initially they thought that they couldn't, but they're like, you know what, it's not that bad. We joined a certain association, or we're utilizing these resources, and we had to kind of redesign the house to make it ADA compliant. I understood how to operate the wheelchair and things like that. And, you know, I can do it. So if that winds up happening with that person, great. But I don't think we need to be demonizing the person who's like, you know what, this is a lot. Like, I'm obviously heartbroken that this happened to you. I wish it didn't. And I'm also maybe experiencing a deep level of depression. And I just don't know if I can keep doing this. I love you and wish that things weren't like this, but despite the love that I have, this is our new reality. So, and I'm sure a person who would make this decision, like, they would think about it so much.
Yeah.
And they would talk about it with friends and family and talk about it in therapy. And I'm sure it would be the most difficult decision. But maybe this is a hot take, but I don't think that is a quote unquote bad person, or that's a weak person for simply deciding that it's too much and they weren't able to continue. Now, I know people are going to say, well, what about the vows? I guess the vows don't mean anything, right? Through sickness and in health. Yes, people make vows and life happens. Just because you made a vow doesn't mean that no matter what, you have to stick it out. And again, this maybe is a hot take for people listening, but if a person is severely depressed because of their new life and they become suicidal, and the thing that's going to give them relief is leaving, and this person is my client, why wouldn't we explore that path? My goal wouldn't be like, let's make it work, you know? So let's say that person couldn't work, who was injured. The other person is having to maybe work extra hours or get a second job. So that's a stressor. And then, okay, when you come home, yeah, maybe, like I said, you guys led a very active life. Now you can't really do those things anymore. Maybe the person who was injured is also depressed, and so you feel like you have to encourage them. So it could just be a wide variety of things. Maybe that person had a lot of close friends in their life, but after the accident, their close friends stopped reaching out. So you've got 45 things stacked against you. So as the therapist, I wouldn't be like, oh yeah, well, you just need to figure it out because you need to be a person of your word and abide by these vows. I'd be like, tell me more. Okay. And we would come up with the plan. So that's what I would say about that. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, for me, this is really difficult. And, you know, we are speaking specifically of marriage in this situation, and we can talk about dating and how that's different later on. But for the sake of this conversation, I don't know. It's hard because when you make those vows and when you marry someone, for me, you marry the person for who they are, right? And so, granted, I mean, I can definitely see from your perspective too, where it's like if it's really affecting you really heavily, and regardless of what decision you make, it's not going to be an easy decision, right? Whether you decide to stay or whether you decide to leave, it's not going to be easy either way. It's going to be difficult. And so, you know, there's a phrase out there, choose your hard, right? And so if the hard that you choose is to stay, you have to understand what that's going to entail. I don't think someone is foolish for staying. I also don't think they are foolish for leaving, like you said. But I think part of the conversation and part of the thought process that this person needs to think about is not only what they will feel and what they will experience. There's going to be a period of grieving, right? There's already a period of grieving, I'm sure, when the person has this major injury. But then if you decide to leave, there's going to be a period of grieving when you leave that relationship, especially if there was nothing quote unquote wrong with the relationship at that point. And it's difficult too because the person who is now quadriplegic, in this scenario anyway, their mind is still the same, right? So they can have these conversations with them. And that would be really difficult, right? I'm just imagining, you know, if this were to happen to you, like that would be, I mean, I would hate for that to happen, obviously. And I do not wish that by any means. I don't know if I could leave, honestly. And that's just me though. But
Yeah.
yeah,
And I would not leave you.
yeah,
So I'm speaking more so from a clinical perspective if this person were my client.
yeah.
But yeah, let the record reflect. I would not leave you for any reason. But the point is, I'm not going to fault someone who feels like that was the best decision for them or that
Yeah.
would be a good decision for them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. Because we don't know what people's plans were, you know, and how important they were for them. And yeah, there's going to be whispers. And I think the person who's choosing to leave will have to understand that.
Right.
They're going to have to realize like people are going to talk trash about you. You have to stand 10 toes down on your decision and know that this is what's right for you and move on with your life from there. Now, again, you can have those conversations with the person who's now quadriplegic and let them know, and hopefully that person will understand. It's going to be difficult for them to see that, but
They may hate you.
they may hate you. They may not want to talk to you ever again, and that's within their right to feel as well. But again, I think, like you said, it does depend on the level of care that this person needs. Because if this person is just in a wheelchair and maybe needs help bathing, that is kind of a lot still, right, for anybody. But if there's like a lot of other things going on that require the person to essentially put their whole life on pause to be a caretaker at this point, that's not what you signed up for, you know? And yes, you know, for richer, for poor, for in sickness and in health, all that stuff, all that is true. And I mean, I don't know. I think sickness is different than life-changing, debilitating injuries, I think, right? Sickness, thinking of like if you have an illness that you're going to recover from, right? That's different because yeah, you go through them through that storm to get to the other side. But if this is the new normal, this is not the person you married, right? And that's hard. And so I think again, let the record reflect. I would never leave you, but if someone does choose to leave because this is not what they signed up for, this is not who they married, all that, yeah, it sucks and people will talk again, but I don't know that it's wrong. Now, I did mention illnesses, right? So does that change if somebody has some type of illness, like let's say they got a diagnosis of MS or ALS, right, which is kind of a degenerative disease, which, slowly deteriorates and eventually takes someone's life. How do you think people should handle that? Or is that any different in your mind clinically, like as far as people's decision to stay or any of that?
So, are we talking about knowing about these diagnoses before you get married? Or are we talking about you're married and then you get this diagnosis?
Yeah, that's a good question because I think that probably changes things, right? So let's just say you were married already and then during the marriage you get this diagnosis. How does that play out?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the same thing as far as it being important for the person to check in to see what they have the capacity to handle.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they don't even have enough information. Sometimes it's just ignorance, and that's causing their fear to exacerbate. Because I would ask them, tell me your level of understanding about MS
Mm-hmm.
generally, and then now, what is the actual prognosis?
Right.
Because your frame of reference for MS could be that grandma you saw on TV when you were 6 years old,
Mm-hmm.
who wasn't able to leave the house and whose body was very deformed and was in pain all the time and had a poor quality of life, when your partner's prognosis could actually be the exact opposite
Mm-hmm.
because they caught it early, because there's this new medication or this new trial that they're a part of. So we got to get the facts on the table. And then it's about, okay, practically speaking, what does that look like?
Mm-hmm.
Are you able to still work? Are you able to do certain things? Yeah, maybe the only support that the person needs is you giving them an injection
Mm-hmm.
every night. Other than that, they're pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe that's not as bad. That's actually something that you could do. And then also it's like, okay, as far as support, can we get a provider to come into the house to help out? Is that covered by insurance? Do we need to work with the social worker? Do we need to work with the care coordinator? So, but yeah, I would tell that person, like, let's not divorce them as soon as they get an ALS diagnosis,
Mm-hmm.
because that's a bit of a rash decision. Now, ALS is a little bit different because you for the most part, you've got 3 years. That's pretty standard. And there could be someone who's like, knowing they're going to die in 3 years, like, I don't want to just watch that happen. It's too much. But even with any large decision, that's always my thing, is like, hold on, right? Like, let's just
Yeah.
take a breath. Let's breathe, because you're in your emotional brain right now. Like, you're not in your logical brain. So let's just take a beat. But I would say I kind of have the same answer as far as, like, if that person realizes, I just married you and now you have an ALS diagnosis, so I'm going to be a widow in 3 years, and that's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's just too much for me. I want to be with someone who's not going to die. Again, hot take, but if that person did all the research and they understood the disease and they talked to the doctor and they understood the prognosis, because some people get a full 3 years, other people get less than that, and they're like, I literally can't.
Mm-hmm.
As that person's therapist, like, I'm not gonna force them to stay.
Yeah. I mean, as their therapist, I wouldn't necessarily force them to stay. I do think that's the thing.
Well, as a therapist, we can't force anyone to do anything.
Right. Yeah. We can't do anything. And that's the thing I think a lot of people get misconstrued about therapy in general. They think therapists just give advice and tell people what to do. And that's not what we do. We kind of just allow the person to speak and see where their brain is at and see what would be best for them with what they have. Right. So with ALS, though, because it is typically a pretty short term disease, right? It's like 3 years, like you said. I would almost, I don't know. I wouldn't say someone's a bad person for leaving, right? Because they have their own reasons. And I don't necessarily believe in like the term bad people in general. There are some people out there, right? But in general, I think people make decisions, right? I don't think leaving someone because they have ALS. I don't know. I don't love that decision in general. Just
Yeah,
because,
on a human level.
yeah, because it's temporary, right? It's 3 years. It's going to be 3 really difficult years, right? And after those 3 years, you're going to grieve, right? There's going to be, with diseases like that and with other diseases that have a terminal prognosis, there is this anticipatory grief that people experience, right? Where there's grieving while the person is dying. And so the grieving after someone dies typically is a lot shorter term. It's not like it's this prolonged situation in general. Sometimes it is, but in general, it's not as difficult. And so to that person, I would just say, like, this is fairly short term. Can you see yourself walking through this with your partner that you married? Let's say it was recent, as difficult and sad as that will be. And then after they die, moving on with your life, and finding another partner and all of that, if that's in your cards. Now, for some people, they won't be able to do that. This is the love of their life, and they can't imagine ever marrying someone else ever again. And to them, maybe they will stay with them until they die, and then they'll just be a widow or widower after that. But for someone who can see themselves marrying again, I don't know. It's difficult because obviously we've never lived this situation. I've never experienced that. But I know personally, I wouldn't leave. But yeah, if I was seeing someone as a client, if that was the right decision for them, I wouldn't sway them or try to persuade them in a different direction, because I don't think it's a quote unquote bad thing to do.
Right.
And it's not illegal, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
So yeah, as therapists, yeah, we do have to kind of let the clients lead the situation, and whether or not we agree with it personally is irrelevant to the client's experience. And that's difficult. That's one of the more difficult things about our jobs, is putting aside our own beliefs, putting aside our own moral compass to help the client live their life in a way that makes sense for them. And it's a skill, and it's a difficult skill to hold, because yeah, on the inside, I would be cringing if someone was wanting to do that, but also I would understand. I would hear their perspective, and I would see the pain in their eyes. I would see the difficulty that it's going to be for them, and I would get it. Again,
Yeah.
understanding it and agreeing with it are different.
Well, it just reminds me of abortion.
Mhm.
We're currently trying to conceive and want that more than anything in the world. Well, in my career, I have had experience of working with someone who had an abortion, and I supported them through that because that's what made sense for them. That's not anything I would do because I'm trying to have a baby right now. But again, we are two completely different people. So that's what we're talking about right now. And so going back to ALS, I was thinking, what if that person had a grandpa who died of ALS? They witnessed how that disease progressed, how it impacted the family. Let's say they were old enough to remember all of that. Fast forward years later, their spouse gets that diagnosis. Maybe part of the reason why they want to leave and not write it out is because they're not trying to go through what their family went through. So there's that. And then also, I'm really big on telling my clients there are consequences to all of our actions, right? Whatever decision you make, you got to stand by that. So, okay, yeah, if it's too much, you can leave. And would that be something that's going to keep you up at night? Also, if you leave that person, you're most likely divorcing the family. So let's say you really like that person's siblings or their parents or their cousins. Most likely everybody's going to hate you.
Yeah.
Not trying to scare them, but just keeping it real. Most likely if you run into people on the street, they may give you the stink eye, or your life, I don't know, let's say like you go to the same doctor or something like that, and then the doctor treats you a little differently, which shouldn't happen because that's unprofessional. But I'm just saying, like, It's not an easy decision.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've thought about all of those things and you're still like, you know what, this seems to be the best decision for me, okay. Maybe what's best is you move across country and start a
Mm-hmm.
new life, and maybe eventually when you're ready, get with someone else. And those are questions to ask. But yeah, I don't think that person would be a demon for wanting to make the decision. But if you're going to make the decision, we are going to talk about it from 55 different angles.
Mm-hmm.
And then if, again, you just come back to the same decision every single time, it's like, okay, well, that looks like that's what's best for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that is difficult, right? That speaks to what I mentioned earlier, the difference between understanding and agreeing with someone's decisions. And yeah, we definitely have to look through all the different options, because if you don't, then they're blindsided and they're harmed in that, then we're not at fault necessarily, but we didn't do our jobs of like exploring that with them, and then they're caught off guard, and then they're in a worse place off than they were before. And that's not good either, right? So we definitely want to explore all those different options and see, with all of that on the table, do you still want to make this decision? If yes, okay, let's talk through that. But if not, okay, what are some things you need to do to be able to manage yourself when you stay, right? Because it's not going to be easy either way. We just have to figure out like which one are you going to be able to live with. And so this was really regarding getting that diagnosis after you're already married. Now, we did briefly talk about like what happens if you're on the dating apps and you're dating someone and you find out this information several months into the relationship. You guys are hitting it off, you guys are really liking each other. Maybe you've already said I love you, and then you find out that they get this diagnosis. Or let's say they had this diagnosis and they hadn't told you until 3 months in, because that's always scared people off in the past, or they wanted you to get to know them as a person first, like all of that. How do you think that would play out, and how do you think that should be handled?
I feel like my answer's the same. It's just tweaked a little different for each scenario. But I was thinking of an STD
Mm,
or kidney disease. Okay, what is it, right? Knowledge is power. So let's figure that out. And then, okay, how does this practically show up,
mm-hmm,
right? If it's an STD, okay, obviously I'm going to be worried that it's transmittable.
mm-hmm,
So there's that, because protection is really important, of course. But okay, it's chronic kidney disease, CKD. Okay, what does that look like,
mm-hmm,
right? Are we needing dialysis? Okay. Dialysis, to my knowledge, is about 3 times a week
mm-hmm.
for hours.
Yeah.
So, how is that going to impact your life? How is that going to impact my life? We're dating, we're getting to know each other, we're figuring things out. A big part of that is just compatibility.
Mm-hmm,
Sometimes it's just misalignment there. And so, if it's too much, it's too much. And you have every right to say, nope, can't do it. I'm out the door. But again, you could surprise yourself and maybe you could do it. Maybe they have an STD, but they're taking meds for it. It's been suppressed. It's not transmittable, and you're good.
mm-hmm.
But I think other people, I think that's a big issue with every scenario we're talking about, is being impacted by our friends, our
Yeah.
family, and the greater society, which is that you got to stick with it, whether you're married
Mm-hmm,
or you just started dating. You got to give it a chance. So I think we have to silence the noise around us and figure out what makes sense for me.
mm-hmm.
Like, okay, you have cystic fibrosis. You have to do this nebulizer treatment. You can't go running. I'm an ultra marathoner, and I
Yeah.
kind of always wanted to be with someone who not necessarily did that, but was active. You literally can't do that because you'll die. It's not in alignment.
Yeah.
And why should that person feel bad? Again, we're talking about dating. Why should that person feel bad for not wanting to pursue it? If the friends and family are like, oh my God, well, they have all these other things great on paper. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but they have CF.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the current life expectancy is, but I know at a certain point it was very low.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe it's the 40s. Y'all can fact check me on that one. So again, I'm kind of saying the same thing with all of these different scenarios, but
Mm-hmm.
that's the way that I work. That's how my practice runs. And that's what we're trained to do as clinicians.
Yeah. I agree with everything you said. I think when you're dating, obviously the stakes are not as high as when you're married, right? Because divorce and splitting up all the assets and all that stuff is a lot. But if you're dating, right, you can just leave and that's it. So it makes the decision maybe a little bit easier if you are thinking about doing that. But yeah, the same conversation is going to need to be had with them, looking at what the consequences are going to be for this. Now, they may not be that bad. You've only been dating for a few months. You're not heavily entwined with their families and all that stuff. So it may not be as difficult, but maybe there are some people who get pretty involved pretty quickly. And so that might be a thing, right? And that might be difficult to break off at that point, whether you're married or not. So I don't know. I think with some of these things, they are important to have the conversation with the person who has this disease or this illness. Now, do you think, as someone with it, do you think that's something you should disclose like on the dating apps, on your profile, or like within the first couple of dates? Or do you think that's something that you should withhold so they get to know you as a person more? Like, because I've heard both ways. I've heard some people feel like that's deceitful or secretive or trying to hook people in and making it more difficult to leave. Like that can feel manipulative for a lot of people. But what are your thoughts? Like, do you think people have the responsibility to let people know about their sicknesses or illnesses that are debilitating or life altering at the beginning of a relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. Would I say you have to put it on your profile? No. But I would certainly recommend self-disclosing those first couple of dates
Mm-hmm.
as soon as possible. Because of course, as time goes on, you're going to like the person, your affections are going to grow. And you're right, it can easily become manipulative.
Mm-hmm.
If you wait 6 months in when you guys are already in love, you met friends, you met family, you've had all these incredible experiences, and then you tell them, and then they're like, oh, what, you don't love me anymore? And it's just like, first of
Right.
all, what's love got to do with it?
Yeah.
Right? Like, you just dropped a bomb. It's kind of similar to having a kid.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. People should know about that.
Mm-hmm.
With the kid thing, I would say put it on the profile.
Yeah.
But that is different. But yeah, if you have some kind of a chronic illness, yeah, do it in the very beginning because you want that person to make an informed decision.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you've got this thing and you have this personality and these characteristics and da 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 da. Instead of, again, just going off of all those other things and then being upset with them when it takes them a second to process cystic fibrosis.
Yeah. And that's not only fair for the person receiving the news, but that's fair for you too, because
Mhm.
the person will get to know you as your full self,
Right.
right? Instead of getting to know 95% of you, except for this really big thing. And then you're always going to question whether they actually like that part of you or not,
Right.
right? If they decide to stay, then it's like, maybe they're only choosing to stay with me because we have a lot of history together. And that's always going to be a question. But if they knew all the information at the jump, like you said, they'll make an informed decision and you will know, you can be confident that they made that decision knowing all the facts already instead of later on down the road.
Yeah, and if you don't tell them for a long time, you could possibly wind up lying because they're like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And you're like, meanwhile, your ass has to go to the hospital for your treatment, or
Yeah.
you have a doctor's appointment and you're like, I'm working late. My grandma's in town."
Yeah.
And so you could possibly become a liar, right?
Yeah.
Like that can really mess with your character and your value system. So yeah, it's really in your best interest to just say, "Hey, I got diagnosed with CF as soon as I got here,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to do these nebulizer treatments and da da da." And I thought I was a candidate for a lung transplant, but turns out I'm not, or whatever it is. Serve that information to the person and let them think about it.
Yeah.
And I would say too, like, it's not your person if they say it's too much,
Yeah.
right? Because like your person is going to be able to handle it. And
Mhm.
maybe your person's like, oh yeah, my little sister has CF.
Yeah.
Or I did a research paper on that. Or I actually work in a hospital and I see CF clients all the time. And I'm well aware and da da da. Like, because I think a big thing too is someone who has it, the issue is like, everyone should love me. Like, everyone should be totally open with this. And that's just not realistic.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Would you get with someone who had AIDS? You know, and I know there are different diagnoses, but no, I would never get with someone who has okay, same thing.
Yeah.
People have a right to be like, nope, I'm good. And maybe there's someone who is super down if someone who has AIDS because not super down, like they're excited, but like, okay, you're taking all these medications. There has been so many advancements
Mm-hmm.
to where it's no longer this death sentence like it was in the early 80s. And they're like, yeah, nope, that's okay. You know, that's
Mm-hmm.
not something that's gonna deter me. So yeah, I think it's the easiest decision? No, it's very, very difficult. But I do think it can be done in a good way. I do think someone with CF or with some other chronic illness can successfully date.
Mm-hmm.
We just have to be intentional.
Yeah, I think something that's important for people with these diagnoses to look at before they start dating someone, and this is something I know you and I have talked to our clients about, like what would happen if you told them early? What would happen if you didn't? That way you can clearly see what the consequences will be, right? Like, yeah, there's pros and cons to both of them, but typically the cons far outweigh the pros when it comes to telling them later rather than earlier. If you don't tell them early on, yeah, they'll stick by you, and yeah, they'll like you for who you are. They'll get to know you outside of your diagnosis. That's all great. And if you tell them later, that could be a bombshell for them. They could feel blindsided. They could feel deceived. That could disrupt some of the trust that you guys have built. There's a lot of really negative consequences that can come from saying something later. And yeah, I'm glad you brought up the kids because obviously kids aren't a disease, but it is a really big thing that people have to live with. And that changes the whole dynamic of a relationship. So if you are on the dating apps, not disclosing that you have a kid, and then you are always beating your partner outside somewhere, and then 3 months in, 4 months in, you're like, so by the way, I have a 5-year-old at home. It's like, what?
Yeah.
I I don't want to have kids, or I wanted to be the father of all my kids, whatever the case may be. Now, do they have a right to have those thoughts and opinions? Absolutely. Right? Does it put you in a bind now? Yeah, it definitely does, because now you're looking at potentially breaking up with this person that you getting along with, that you've built real feelings for, because you withheld this really important information, right? And that the onus is on you to let people know that.
Yeah.
You can't get mad at them for wanting to leave at that point.
Right. I remember when I was on the apps, I didn't want that.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, no, I come from a blended family and I had a lot of issues with that. So I wasn't open to it. And I was on the apps for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
So there were definitely seasons where I was like, okay, you're approaching your mid 30s and
Yeah.
the chances of you getting someone that doesn't have kids is probably slim. So maybe you should be open. But every time I tried to just embrace that, I couldn't. I was like, no, I just has nothing to do with the kid because I
Mm-hmm.
know I would love any kid.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, it's the baby mama. It's the fact that she's always going to be around, right?
Mhm.
You guys have to communicate to coordinate pickups and drop offs. And there are some incredible baby daddies and baby mamas, but there are also a lot of problematic ones. And that can impact the kiddos functioning, that can impact your mental health and then our relationship, we're already going to have challenges because every relationship does. And so for me, I was like, I don't want to deal with that.
Because not even just the baby mama, but it's the baby mama's family, right? Because that kid has its own set of grandparents and aunts and uncles that come with him, come with the baby mama that you may not want to deal with.
Yeah. I'm such a chill, peaceful person.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very firm on that. And luckily on the apps, you could select different filters that said kids, no kids.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously led me to you. You don't have any kids, and that was great. But yeah, I know that that's kind of like controversial because there are some people who are like, why would you not be with someone that had kids? Oh my gosh. I'm like, you're projecting. That's what you would do. I am not you.
Yeah.
Like, we are different people. On that note, for you, it was different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I initially was open to kids because one, I love kids, and I've,
I mean, I do too.
yeah, I know we both love kids, but like I've always wanted to be a dad, and I could see myself being a stepdad. Like I was totally cool with that. But then when I got in my first marriage, she had a kid. Granted, he was a little bit older, and so that created this dynamic, at least with her, where she never really allowed me to have a lot of input into his life. And if I did, she would kind of override it. It was like, well, I know better. Like, I'm his mom. I've been doing this for X amount of years. So there was always this kind of power dynamic when it came to the kids. Now, some parents are out there, do that really well. They totally embrace the other person coming in and being a co-parent with them, even if they have their biological parent in the picture. So some people do that really well. So I'm not saying that it's always going to be that way, but that was my experience. And so because of that, when I got on the dating apps afterwards, I was like, you know what? I would rather just start from scratch with someone else. And luckily, I found you.
I ain't got no kids.
Yeah, and especially in a city like San Antonio where I think San Antonio has the highest rate of teen pregnancies in the country.
Wow.
So, the chances of finding someone in San Antonio without kids at our age in our mid 30s is pretty rare. So I love that we found each other. So, on the note of having these disabilities and challenges, sometimes there are physical challenges that appear that sometimes people want to hide. I'm thinking of like specific scars on people's faces or even like alopecia, people wear wigs or whatever that the case may be. And I've definitely seen it. We've seen it on Love is Blind, right? Where guys are like, don't wear so much makeup. You don't need makeup. And it's a whole thing. But I've also seen it where it's kind of the same thing with things like this, right? If someone has a really bad birthmark on their, not a bad birthmark, but a really big prominent birthmark on their face that they want to cover up with makeup all the time, I could see their partner being like, just wear your natural face out. Like, just love yourself for who you are, or whatever. I mean, I've already kind of alluded to what our thoughts are on that, but specifically, what are your thoughts on partners wanting their person with some kind of physical challenge to just go out in their natural state and not hide it just because they want them to love themselves as they love them?
What I like about you is you're always like, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. So for someone who has a prominent birthmark on their face and they've started covering that up with makeup from the time they were 10, and they were very expressive about wanting to embrace it, not be held captive to the makeup. Yeah, the partner could be like, you know what, babe? Let's do it, right? Let's go out this Friday night for an hour and just kind of see. But if that person is like, yeah, I started covering this up at a very young age and I will do it to the day that I die because it makes me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
I look at myself in the mirror when I wake up and I hate it. But as soon as I put makeup on, my confidence boosts. For a husband to then be like, oh, babe, don't wear that makeup. You're beautiful. You're fine. That's tone deaf to me
Mm-hmm.
because she literally just said that she feels like shit every single time she looks at her face in the mirror, and things change instantly once she puts the makeup on.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you want to rob her of that?
Yeah.
We have this great invention called makeup, and a lot of times it covers up all the things.
Mm-hmm.
So why not lean into that? So if that guy were my client or if I knew that person, I'd be like, stop doing that. That's
Yeah.
weird and rude. On a different note, because of my PCOS, my hormones are all over the place, and that has led to me experiencing acne that's pretty chronic. And so I do have acne scars, and I am that person that covers it up with makeup. I am that person who does not like how it looks in the mirror, but as soon as I put makeup on, I feel so good. And so if you were to tell me, like, babe, don't wear makeup, you look amazing, that's not helpful.
Yeah.
Are there moments when I need to like run errands and things like that and it's really quick and I don't put it on? Yeah, but anytime I'm actually going out, whether it's to socialize or a date or spend a significant amount of time, even in this crazy Texas heat, I am
Mm-hmm.
putting makeup on because
Yeah.
it makes me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm biased, of course, but yeah, I am not team just push through it.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah, I agree. I think you have to look at what your partner wants and what makes them feel most comfortable. Like you said earlier, if it's a situation where they want to go out more naturally, but they're struggling with the confidence to do that, that's a situation when, yeah, you can work with them and support them through that. But it's not your job to force them to do anything. Your job is to support them in what they want to do within reason, right? Not anything harmful, obviously. But if let's say they are used to wearing wigs or having a weave in or something like that, and that's what makes them feel best about themselves, it is not your job to be like, just go out with your bald head or just go out with your natural hair. Like, that's not your job to do that. If they don't want to go out with their natural hair, they don't have to do that. And it's their body, it's their head, it's their hair, it's their face, it's their personhood.
Right.
And so to try to dictate what they should be doing with themselves is wild.
Yeah, because that's what you want.
Right. Sure, you can compliment them, and I do that with you. Like I say you look beautiful when all the time, like at home and stuff. And, I know for you, you appreciate that and you still like to go out with makeup. Like both things are true. Like you can still affirm your person. You can still say what you appreciate about them, but your appreciation for them should not then translate into controlling what they do.
Right.
And I think people get that mixed up because it's like, well, I like you best when you look this way. So why aren't you doing it that way?
Yeah, because just because we're together doesn't mean that you could say whatever you want, because
Mhm.
that's power and control
Yeah.
and towing the line of abuse. So I'm a individual person who has autonomy and agency. And so even though I could be married to you for 30, 40 years, I still have individual rights. Like
Mhm.
if I don't want to go bald because I have alopecia, I'm going to wear wigs to the day that I die.
Mhm.
Now you may think a bald head looks amazing on other people and so you want that. So that's fine to have those preferences, but to constantly bring it up or to just be like you would look better if you were going out bald, that's just weirdo behavior to me because I would say, okay, what if it was you?
Mhm.
Let's flip the script. And let's say you were a person who loved having a beard, but your partner's like, I want you to be clean shaven. You look so much better clean shaven. Clean shaven people are superior.
Mhm.
And you love your beard. And they just constantly mentioned it. That'd be really, really shitty.
Yeah.
You're like, no, I don't want to do that. I love my beard. I feel confident. And it's a different comparison. But the point is, you do what works for you, let your partner do what works for them.
Yeah. And as you were saying that, I was reminded of our previous marriage again with my glasses, where whenever we took our engagement pictures or for our wedding and all that, she wanted me to not wear glasses. She's like, "You look better without glasses. It looks more formal," which is weird. So don't wear your glasses. But for me, I was like, I like wearing glasses. I love the glasses that I have. I feel more confident in my glasses, like all of that. And she wasn't having it. Like she just was like not allowing me to do it and was giving all these weirdo excuses of like the eyes are the window of the soul and I want to see your soul. I'm like, what, girl? What are you talking about? But anyway, yeah. So again, there was that power and control, like because she had a preference or she had an idea of what looked good, and she was forcing that on me. And I think people do that all the time with other things like makeup or whatever the case may be. So let people live their lives. Don't try to control people.
I mean, hello.
It's really not that hard.
What a concept.
Yeah. Love people for who they are and allow them to be who they are in every way. Like I know Christina Aguilera, right? She has freckles and she covered them for forever because she just didn't like them. And I can totally see someone getting with her. It's like, oh, just wear your freckles out. She's like, I don't want freckles, and that's okay. Like I just want to cover them. That's fine. And you know, she can do that. It's fine.
Yeah, I didn't even know she had freckles.
Yeah, I know she had that one magazine cover a few years ago where she was in her whole natural face, and people were like, "Oh my gosh, she has freckles." I was like, yeah, she talked about that when she was 17. But anyway,
And for someone to say, I didn't know she had freckles, I think for her, it's like, yeah, I didn't want you to know.
right?
So, period, right? That worked out. But obviously, she was comfortable enough
Mm-hmm.
to do the photo shoot and have the world see that she has freckles. But yeah, that's her own personal journey.
Yeah.
So I'm like, let's calm down with commenting on people's bodies.
Yes, for sure.
So for any of you guys who are listening or watching and you have a diagnosis and you're not sure what to do about it, hopefully this episode was helpful. Or if you're someone who thinks you have something and you're going to go to the doctor soon, again, we're hoping that you were able to walk away with this with some nuggets on either end of the spectrum. But at the end of the day, we all have to do what makes sense for us. Maybe the people around us may not understand, and that's okay. Everybody around us isn't always supposed to understand because we don't understand a lot of things that people go through.
Yeah.
But this is a great thing to process in therapy because the therapist can help you walk through all of the stages. So thank you guys as always for tuning in. We truly appreciate the support. You can also send this episode to someone who you think could benefit from it, but please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you guys later. Bye.
Later.